My dear students, the next lesson is solid state. These are the important characteristics of the solids. Generally, solids have definite mass, volume and shape. Solids have definite mass, volume and shape. They have strong intermolecular forces. Solids have strong intermolecular forces. Solids are rigid and incompressible. Solids are rigid and incompressible. The constituent particles which are present in solids, it may be atoms, ions, or molecule, whatever it may be, the constituent particles present in solid have fixed positions. They have fixed positions and they can only oscillate about their mean positions. They can only oscillate about their mean positions. These are the main characteristic properties of solids. Basing on the arrangement of particles, solids are generally classified into two types: crystalline solids and amorphous solids. Crystalline solids and amorphous solids. So this is the table which can differentiate between both crystalline and amorphous solids. So this is the property. Next is followed by crystalline solid. Next one, amorphous solids. The first one is condition of formation. Generally, crystalline solids are formed by slow cooling without any disturbance. Okay? The amorphous solids are formed by rapid cooling with disturbance. So, the process of formation is slow cooling. The process of formation is rapid cooling in the case of amorphous. Okay? Next one, nature. Crystalline solids are considered as the true solids, whereas amorphous solids are considered as the pseudo solids or supercooled liquids. Supercooled liquids because they were formed by rapid cooling. Next one, shape. Crystalline solids have definite geometrical configuration. Please observe here, definite geometrical configuration with long range order of particles. Definite geometrical configuration with long range order of particles. But amorphous solids have short range order of particles with irregularity. Short range order of particles with irregularity. Next one, melting points. Crystalline solids have sharp melting points. These crystalline solids have characteristic heat of fusions. Okay. Next one, in the case of amorphous solids, the melting points are not sharp and it melts over a wide range of temperatures. Okay. Next one, plane surfaces. Crystalline solids possess plane surfaces, whereas amorphous solids cannot bound by plane surfaces. Next one, X-ray diffraction. Crystalline solids have characteristic X-ray diffractive bands. Whereas amorphous solids, they cannot show diffraction bands. Next one, anisotropic. Crystalline solids are anisotropic. Next, in the case of amorphous solids, those are isotropic. Cleavage. Crystalline solids can show perfect cleavage. Whereas amorphous solids cannot show perfect cleavage. Next, anisotropy in crystals. If you observe the difference of anisotropy in crystalline solids and amorphous solids, in crystalline solids, we can observe anisotropic property. The physical properties like electrical resistance or refractive index show different values when they calculate in different dimensions in the same crystal. Suppose if you observe to this line AB line, you can get something value. If you observe through this line CD line, you can get another value for the same property in the same crystal. In the case of crystalline solids, but in the case of amorphous solids, those are isotropic because they have short range order of arrangement of particles and irregular arrangement is there. So almost all the physical properties values are same in all directions. But this is not possible in the case of crystalline solids. If you observe here, two different types of particles are present in a crystalline solid. Suppose, so one type of particles in a particular order, second type of particle in a particular order. Suppose if you observe a particular value, physical property value in this direction, you can get different values because if you observe here, this side, this type of particle one side, and another side, another type of particles are there. If you come across through AB line, if you observe a CD line, so here alternatively these different particles are present. So automatically the properties values, the physical properties values may vary when you go through a different dimensions. Okay, but in the case of amorphous isotopes, it is isotropic because they have short range of order of arrangement with irregularity. So in amorphous solids, this type of arrangement we can't find. So amorphous solids are isotropic, but crystalline solids are clearly anisotropic. Anisotropic means they can show different values of the same physical property if we go through different dimensions in the same crystal. Silica can show both crystalline and amorphous forms. Silica can show both crystalline and amorphous forms. Quartz is the best example for crystalline form. Quartz is the best example for crystalline form. In quartz, there is an infinite chain of regular SiO4 tetrahedra. Infinite chain of regular SiO4 tetrahedra. When quartz is melted and rapidly cooled, it can give amorphous form. When quartz is melted and rapidly cooled, it can give amorphous form. In this amorphous form, these SiO2 chains are irregular in size and orientation. In this amorphous form, SiO2 chains are irregular in size and orientation. Next, this is the table related to types of crystalline solids and their properties. This is type of solid. 4 types of crystalline solids are there: molecular solid, ionic solid, metallic solid. Fourth one, covalent or network solid. Molecular, ionic, metallic, covalent or network solid. Again, molecular solids are 3 types: non-polar solid, polar solid, hydrogen bonded solid. So, what are the constituent particles present in all these solids? Means, in the first case of molecular solids, constituent particles are molecules. In the second one, ionic solids, constituent particles are ions. In the third one, metallic solids. Here, positive ions are present in a sea of delocalized electrons. So last one, covalent or network solids, here particles are atoms. So what type of binding forces are there? Means in non-polar solids, London or dispersion forces are there. In non-polar solids, London or dispersion forces are there. In polar solids, dipole forces are there. In hydrogen bonded solids, hydrogen bonds are there. In ionic solids, electrostatic or Coulombic force of attraction. In ionic solids, electrostatic or Coulombic force of attraction is there. In metallic solids, metallic bond is there. In covalent or network solids, covalent bonds are there. Next one, important examples. You can get objective questions in these examples. Observe carefully. In the case of non-polar solvents, solid CO2, dry ice, I2 in the solid form, H2 in solid form, solid H2, CCl4 in solid form, argon in solid form. So these will come under non-polar solids. If we consider polar solid, solid HCl, solid SO2. In a hydrogen bonded solids means you can consider ice. So in the case of ionic solids, we know NaCl, MgO, ZnS, CaF2, all these are ionic solids. In the case of metallic solids, iron, copper, silver, magnesium. Okay, these are the examples. Most of the metals are like that. The next one, in the case of covalent or network solids, quartz, diamond, SiC, silicon carbide, graphite. So here if you observe, these are the examples of the respective solids. If you see the physical nature, the molecular, in the case of molecular solid, non-polar solids are soft, polar solids also soft, but hydrogen bonded are somewhat hard. So in the case of ionic, these are very hard and brittle. Okay, they have brittle nature. In the case of metallic, hard, and they may be malleable and ductile. In the case of covalent or network, there may be some hard, some not soft also. Okay. Next one, if we consider the electrical property, all the molecular solids are insulators. Simple. Okay. In the case of ionic, here they can act as insulators in solid state. Please observe this point. In the case of ionic solids, these are insulators in solid state, but they can act as conductors in the case of molten or aqueous state. Please observe this point. Ionic solids can act as insulators in solid state and can act as conductors in the case of molten or aqueous state. If you observe metallic solids, these are good conductors because here electrons can carry charge. So they are good conductors in solid state and molten state, no problem. In the case of last one, the few examples what we have given, quartz, diamond, silicon, they may be insulators. But in the case of graphite, it is a conductor, it has free electron. Okay, next one, if you observe the melting points, generally molecular solids have low melting points, particularly non-polar solids have very low melting points. In the case of ionic solids, they are very strong, hard, they have a high melting point because they have strong electrostatic forces of attraction. In the case of metallic, also melting points are high. In the case of covalent or network, it depends upon the type of the example. If we consider diamond, quartz like silicon carbide, very high melting point. If in the case of graphite, it is somewhat low when comparing with the above examples diamond. So graphite has some high, but when comparing with the diamond, it has low melting point. Okay. Please observe here, these examples are useful in objective examination. Check once again. Right. Next one, metallic bond. The interatomic attraction force between atoms of a metal or alloy refers to metallic bond. The interatomic attractive force between atoms of a metal or alloy. If you observe these 5 points, the first one is bonds between atoms of same element in a metal. Because in a metal, similar type of atoms are there. What type of bonds exist between these atoms? Okay. Next one, in alloy, different elements are there. So there may be some bonds between the atoms of different elements. Third one, what about the mobility of electrons in conductors? The mobility of electrons in conductors. Fourth one, the properties of metals in liquid are in solution form. Because these metals are solids generally. Suppose if they may be converted into liquid or in solution form, so what about their properties? Next one, the non-directional nature of bonding. Here so if you discuss all these 5 points, then only a metallic bond concept will be covered in all angles. So all these points need to explain. Okay? Right. Next, electron C model, Pauling valence bond theory. These two theories are useful to explain metallic bond. If we consider electron cell model, Drude and Lorentz proposed this model. Electron C model was proposed by Drude and Lorentz. Metallic solid contains a rigid spheres of metal ions according to this model. Metallic solid contains rigid spheres of metal ions. The metal atom generally before forming metal ion, it loses electrons to form electron C. Then the metal atom converts into ion. These electrons which are coming out from the metal atom, they can move freely in the free spaces in the lattice. So there is an electrostatic force of attraction between metal ion and these electrons. So automatically cohesive forces can be developed. Because of these cohesive forces, these metal ion can bind these mobile electrons within this sphere of influence. Once again, because of these cohesive forces, these electrons and metal ions can bind together. Actually, these electrons are mobile. These are mobile moving electrons, not fixed. So, even though those are attracted and bonded within its sphere of influence by these cohesive forces. Pauling valency bond theory, otherwise called as resonance theory. Metallic bond is a covalent bond. According to this theory, there is a resonance between number of structures having one electron and electron pair bond. Here resonance involves both ionic linkages and covalent linkages. Please observe here. Resonance involves both ionic linkages and covalent linkages. If we consider this example, here between two lithium atoms, so horizontal lithium atoms contains covalent linkages in the first case. After that it shifts to the vertical atoms. So this type of resonance we can observe in covalent structures. If we go to the third one, here one lithium contains positive charge and another lithium contains negative charge. So the remaining adjacent two lithium atoms are bonded with a negative lithium ion. So if you go to the fourth one, here the negative charge shift to the opposite one, diagonally opposite one. So the last two structures refers to ionic structures, the first two structures to covalent structures. So here metallic bond directly proportional to number of valence electrons, simple. Next one, metallic bond inversely proportional to atomic size of the atom. Next one, if the metallic bond strength is more, lattice energy is more. Metallic bond strength is more, lattice energy is more. There may be one drawback, main drawback in the Pauling's valency bond theory. He cannot explain conduction of heat in solids. How conduction of heat takes place in solids cannot explain. Okay, these are the theories which explains metallic bond.